Welcome back to my channel. I'm Beth Morgan, the Poor Valley Princess, and I'm so excited that you've decided to join me today. We are talking about things that are commonplace here in Appalachia, and today that involves getting the garden planted. Now, I've had several inquiries by different people about gardening by the moon, and so today I thought, let's just start out simple talking about what that really means. Now, I have a book that I love that I want to share with you first. It's called Raising with the Moon, The Complete Guide to Gardening and Living by the Signs of the Moon. This is an awesome reference book. I use it a lot. It's by Jack Pyle and Taylor Reese. And if you are looking for a great reference material, I suggest that you go with this book. Today, let's look just at these two terms. Let's look at these two terms: growing by the light of the moon and growing by the dark of the moon. I'm going to read for you exactly what the definition is for growing by the light of the moon according to Raising with the Moon. The light of the moon is the 14-day plus period of the lunar month when the moon is growing in light. Sometimes it's referred to as the waxing moon, which corresponds with the first and second quarters of the lunar month. There's always been some confusion on this point. Some people seem to think that the light of the moon refers to any time when the moon is plainly visible. This is not the case. It is when the moon is growing in light. It's in that process. It's getting bigger. It's growing in light. A growing moon is energized. It's growing in light and in energy. The first and second quarters, above ground growth of plant life is favored. Now that's key. So in the light of the moon, first and second quarters of the month, above ground growth. So that is your key definition that you want to get in your mind. Think light of the moon, above ground growth, first and second quarters. Now let's take a look at the dark of the moon. Now the dark of the moon is going to be that waning time. So let's look at what the book says. The dark of the moon. The 14-day plus period of the lunar month when the moon is declining in light, sometimes referred to as a waning moon, and it corresponds with the third and the fourth quarters of the lunar month. This is the period from the full moon to the next new moon. A waning moon indicates declining energy. So it's decreasing in size, and while above ground growth is not favored, this is a great time for root crops. So this is a great time for your potatoes, your carrots, all those underground root crops. This period of the lunar month corresponds to the third and fourth quarters, which we said. Now, I love this book because it actually gives me an entire chart here, which tells me different examples of vegetables that can be planted in all four quarters. So, for example, after the new moon in the first quarter, all grains, asparagus, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower, celery, corn, and cucumbers. And then it does the same thing for all the quarters, which is awesome. This is a wonderful reference. So that's kind of a little intro to planting with the moon. So the first thing you want to pay attention to is the moon in the first and second quarter, which is going to be great for your above ground crops, or is the moon in the third and the fourth quarter, which you're going to look at your root crops. Now, what's great about this book is in the back there is a reference sheet that actually gives me some examples of what I can plant during each one of the different quarters. For example, after the new moon in the first quarter, all grains, asparagus, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower, celery, corn, and cucumbers. And then in the second quarter, beans, eggplants, melons, peas, peppers, pumpkins, squash, tomatoes, and flowers. Then in the third quarter, the beets, carrots, chicory, potatoes, radish, rutabagas, onions, turnips, and tubers. These are your root vegetables. And then the fourth quarter, and this kind of goes along with that. You want to try to plant in the third quarter because the fourth quarter is considered an unproductive quarter, a dead time. So really you should try to stay away from planting anything in the fourth quarter if you can. Now that you know the difference between the light of the moon and the dark of the moon, what's next? Well, we know that the light of the moon is the first and second quarters of the lunar month, and that's going to be your above ground vegetables. And the third and fourth quarter are your dark of the moon. That's the waning of the moon. That's going to be your root vegetables. An easy way to keep up with that is to get one of these calendars. This is a wonderful lunar calendar. Now, in my area of Appalachia, they give these away at various businesses in our area, banks, and funeral homes. They give them away or sell them at very discounted prices. But what's great about these calendars, you can look at it and you can immediately see when your full moons are, your first quarter, your second quarter, and your new moon. You can look at this and immediately see which part of the lunar month you are currently in. And you can see I've taken a highlighter and marked different times of the month where it's going to be a good time to plant certain vegetables that I'm looking to get into the garden. And so that's a great way for you to keep up with the lunar month. Now, do you believe that the moon affects things or not? Well, I don't know. But I can tell you, if you've ever been to a school during the full moon, every teacher and principal will tell you there is something to the effect of the moon on our bodies and our personalities. So if you're interested in that at all, I suggest you get this book. You can delve into things like the other signs. So once you figure out the phases of the moon and the light and the dark of the moon, you can start looking at the other signs. Some people put a lot of stock in these signs, and some people say it's all a bunch of hooey. I will say that through the years, I've tried to plant with the signs, and I've also missed it because of weather or things that happened, and I've just went ahead and planted. And you know what? Things have grown anyway. So, be that as it may, you can be your own judge. But in this book, the second chapter will talk about some of the more fruitful signs. For example, Cancer is the most fruitful of the signs. Excellent. Want abundance. Want an abundant crop. Scorpio, good for sturdiness or vine growth. Pisces, a good sign for root growth. And then the semi-fruitful signs are Taurus, and that's a sign for quick growth or root crops. Hardy crop. Capricorn, for use when pulp or stalks are desirable. And then Libra, good for flowers. There are advantages and disadvantages to both the choice of the moon phase and the sign, depending on the nature of the item being planted and the results desired. And then it goes on to tell you a little bit about how you can determine exactly when you want to plant according to each one of those things. If you're interested in learning more about the individual signs, there's lots of handy reference guides in the back that you would probably enjoy as well. So I definitely recommend this resource. It has really helped me when learning how to keep up with my calendar and figure out when the best times to plant are. Thanks once again for stopping by and hanging out with me as we talk about planting by the moon. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you do, hey, leave a comment. Maybe you are a die-hard plant by the signs person. I would love to hear from you. Leave me a comment down below and tell me how that goes for you. And I'll see you next time here on the Poor Valley Princess. I'm Beth Morgan saying thank you. See you next time.